America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone.
All right, well, now it's time for our interview with Andrew Crapuchettes, the founder and CEO of Red Balloon. Andrew, welcome to Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone.
Thanks for having me, and nice to see you.
Great to see you too. Well, Red Balloon, we're going to get to Red Balloon in a minute, but I would love for you to just kind of tell us about yourself and how you got here today to Red Balloon, but I know there's a big journey there that you can talk about.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to cover that. Yeah, so I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I did the .com thing. Kind of got tired of traffic and liberals, so I moved up to Idaho. Now live on 60 acres, 10 minutes from the office, which is hard to do in San Francisco. But when I moved up here 20 years ago or so, I realized there weren't a lot of good jobs in town, and God had given me gifts to create jobs and businesses. So why not do that to bless my little community? So I've started a whole bunch of businesses here, a 3D printing business that I ended up selling to Stryker, student information system business that I did a management buyout with so that the employees could kind of build wealth for their families with ownership, which I'm a big fan of. And then I've built some businesses around technology and labor market data, the most recent of which was MZ, Economic Modeling Specialist International. And we built a labor market data company, which sounds really dismal, the dismal science of economics and all that. But we realized that labor market data is actually pretty critical for most individuals, because if you want to make a good decision about your where you're going to go to dinner tonight, or where you're going to take a vacation, or even getting a mortgage for your house, there's a lot of decision-ready information for all of those fairly minor and major decisions in your life. But when it comes to your career or your education, or, hey, what skills should I achieve to be able to get a raise at my current job? Well, there's not actually really good decision-ready information about that. And so I was fortunate enough to, with some economists, build a company that we built up to about a $50 million tech business that helped answer those questions for people in colleges, in large corporations, in state agencies all over the world. And it was a really fun adventure. And I sold the business a number of times, which is also great because you get to learn a lot from your different owners. Unfortunately, the last owner was an ESG fund, and that ESG fund was not okay with the fact that I'm an unapologetic conservative Christian, because that is just not okay in today's world. So I spent some time kind of grappling with them on the right way to handle things like COVID, and whether I needed to make a statement about BLM or George Floyd. And it was clear that it just was not a good fit. So I ended up leaving that organization about 2 years ago. And I thought, I wonder if there's other Americans who are going to grapple with this moment where they have to decide between their job and their values, where, okay, you need to kind of be a different person at work if you're allowed to keep your job or not. And so that's why I started Red Balloon, because I thought this is not the way that I've ever found to have a productive workforce in a workplace, when you are taking people and not letting them live their values out loud. And so that's why we started Red Balloon. We started it before the vaccine mandate, really because I saw a lot of wokeness in the workplace that was kind of crushing the joy that came from working hard, providing value, blessing customers. And I saw a lot of that going away, especially during the last election cycle. And so I thought, okay, what if we could do better than that? And so RedBalloon.work now is America's #1 non-woke job board, and is a pro-freedom job board, if you want to look at it on the positive side. And we're focused on taking employers who, look, you don't have to have a political agenda. You don't have to, have the right social media following. If you just want to do work and believe in freedom and the meritocracy that made America great in the first place, then that's what Red Balloon is for. And in the 18 months that we've been doing this, we have over 3,000 businesses that have signed up. We've had over 1 million job seekers on the platform, and we have more joining every single day. And it's just been a fun adventure, because of all the businesses I've run It's the only business I've ever run where I get these unsolicited thank you notes from perfect strangers where they say, you have changed the trajectory of my family because my job, my vocation is such an important part of who I am and how I think about the world. And now I have an opportunity to be free at work. And when I'm free at work, my marriage is better. I'm more plugged in with my kids. I'm going to church again. So we get these thank you notes. I've gotten hundreds of thank you notes from people who have had their lives changed because they got a new job. So anyway, it's been one of the more rewarding businesses I've ever run. And that was probably a longer answer than you were looking for, but there it is. And I'm sticking with it.
No, it's great. It's great. And it's super interesting to see how people sort of evolve. And I know that your faith is very important to you. I imagine that's been a huge guide for you, but how has it guided you in business to bring you to where you are today?
Yeah. We should, if you look 15 years ago, there was a lot of people, I'll say, on the left who were jumping on up and down on bring your whole self to work, right? This was this big movement, bring your whole self to work. But the reality is that they were using that as a way to gain a strategic position in the company so that other people couldn't bring their whole self to work, right? And I believe that as a Christian in work, even as a CEO, my job was not to try and convert everybody or to take my worldview and jam it down everybody else's throat, but it should be how I live out my life and how I manage people. I would actually interview people coming into the organization that I was running before. And I'd say, full disclosure, just like, the contents of this cup might be hot. You need to know that I'm an unapologetic conservative Christian. And that is not a prerequisite for working here. And it's not a prerequisite for succeeding here. But you need to know that's who I am. But the ramifications of that are we are never going to talk behind each other's back at this company. So if you have a problem with me, I would encourage you to come and talk to me. And in fact, if you come to my office and say I'm doing a bad job, you might get a raise. But if you come to my office and say so-and-so is doing a bad job and you haven't talked to them first, you might get fired because I do not want politics in our office. Other ramifications. We're going to have a kegerator in the office, but it's not to get drunk with. You're welcome to enjoy life and the blessings that come from that, but don't spend your time doing things that are inappropriate in a professional environment. So we built this culture at this company, and that's how your faith should work out in your business. You should, and I had a lot of people grab me at the end of work and say, "Hey, why are you so joyful, even with everything that's going on?" I'm like, you know what? I'd love to grab a beer or go out for dinner and talk about that after work. But while we're at work, we're going to focus on work, but it should have an impact. Your faith should have an impact on how you treat people, how you think about business, how you create innovation in the marketplace. And I know it has for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you have somebody that either works for you or that you work with who, is respectful of your ideas, even if they disagree, it just makes it such a better work environment. This whole DEI movement, I would imagine that's not a huge job listing in your database, although I see it on a lot of LinkedIn part of their database all the time. It seems like that's the hottest job in corporate America right now, is to be the head of DEI. And just a side note on that, I saw this viral video. It was a young girl, probably in her early 20s, maybe mid 20s. And this video has literally gone viral because she said, when I'm a hiring manager, if I see anybody with pronouns next to their name, I'm not going to hire them. And the reason why is because it's going to be a huge signal to me that they're going to be triggered. They're going to be high maintenance. Yep. They're going to be more litigious. They're going to be harder to get along with. And I thought, that is so true. Yeah. I mean, I do hire people. And I guess in some ways, I do think that way. If I see those pronouns next to someone's name, I think, is that the kind of person they are? Are they going to be an easygoing person? I'm just not sure. Right.
Exactly. No, this DEI thing. And I do think that there is a shift happening right now in a good way, because DEI has been the hottest position. I remember I was talking to a CEO of a publicly traded company about 2 years ago. And he says, the only two people I'm afraid of is the chairman of the board and the head of HR, because they both have more power than I do at my company. Because if they say that I did something wrong, then no one questions them. They're kind of above the CEO on a lot of different things, right? And I don't think that's a good place to be in. And I could go into this authority and responsibility thing, but we'll save that for another day. But absolutely. So DEI has been kind of sapping the joy out of a lot of workplaces, but we're actually starting to see reports that it's not working anymore. And even companies who, and obviously the Supreme Court comes out with their, you can't do affirmative action in the universities. And then these 13 attorneys general came out from conservative states telling Fortune 100 companies, hey, those DEI policies, anytime you're doing race-based hiring, firing, or promotion, it is racism and it's wrong and it's illegal and we won't allow you to do it. Well, that should be encouraging to Americans that we're getting back to a place where people can actually just be productive and get rewarded for being productive rather than for having the right parents and the right skin color. So I think this is a really good development. But the reason that I think this is shifting is not only that, but you see companies like Public Square, and we're partnered up with Public Square. We're the kind of official job board for Public Square. And as they're going public this week, we're seeing momentum in this freedom economy like I have not seen in years, where people are saying, you know what, I am going to stand up at work. I am going to live my values out loud. And if my employers is not going to respect my values, then I'm going to find another job, because we're in a tight labor market. Companies are struggling to find and keep great talent. And obviously they're coming to RedBalloon.work, but they're also just looking for places where they can be free. And I think as that shift happens, you see the movement down to red states, predominantly in the South, the great sort that's happening all over the U.S. Like, these trends are just showing that Americans are willing to vote with their dollars, with where they live, and with their job, to be able to be free and support their values in the economy. So I think there's a lot of good movement, even if the DEI stuff has been kind of a pariah in the workplace over the last several years.
Yeah, I tend to, people in my circle, when we hear it, we all kind of shut down. Like,
yep,
it almost has become just a bad word, because it means, what you just said, selecting people based on the color of their skin or the right parents or whatever it is. And nobody wants that. I mean, life is hard enough. I mean, we all want to work hard. We all want to be rewarded for that. So Red Balloon,
yeah.
What kinds of businesses? I mean, Job Creators Network, we focus on small businesses and advocating for what they need to succeed, to grow and thrive, so they can hire more people.
That's right.
But are you focused more on small business? Do you have large companies, certain industries, certain sizes?
Yeah, it's a great question. We are predominantly small businesses, because a lot of small businesses, the hiring process is terrifying, right? Because we know at RedBalloon.work, we actually did this study of the cost of a bad hire. And for particularly a small business, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars if you hire a person that's really bad, right? It's the cost of the lost time, the bad experience your customers have when you get a bad hire, the replacement that it's going to take to find someone to replace that bad hire. It is a significant undertaking. And so for small businesses, they want to avoid that bad hire, whether it's a bad cultural hire or a bad skill hire. But then on the other side, they're really afraid that if they ask the questions that will identify if this person's going to be a bad culture fit, they might get a lawsuit, right? Because they're afraid that we're in such a litigious society that they use things like the pronouns to decide, you know what, I'm not even going to do an interview, because an interview with this person could go very, very badly. And so there's these significant ditches on the two sides of the road for many employers where they're not sure, man, I need to ask those questions, but I don't want to get into a lawsuit. And so small businesses are coming to RedBalloon.work in droves right now, because they're looking for places where they know that the vast majority of the job seekers on here are just hardworking conservatives who want to bring value, aren't going to be offended by every little thing, and are going to focus on bringing value to the company that hires them. And so we work with businesses in two different ways. And to answer your question, we have every industry, every state. We're all over the country. We're not as big as Indeed. We're not as big as ZipRecruiter, because we're just getting started. But we are seeing significant momentum. In fact, a lot of the employers that are hiring through Red Balloon, one of them wrote me and said, I just want you to know that everybody I'm hiring through Red Balloon is cleansing to our culture, because they're just hardworking conservatives who show up and want to work, which is kind of the shocking concept, right? And so they're all over the map, and we can either help employers by just posting jobs, just like an Indeed or a ZipRecruiter, or if you want us to actually take on some of the hiring process, we do that as well, where we can help you write the job posting. We can put that job on RedBalloon. We can proactively go find people that might be a fit, and then we'll do a first cultural interview to make sure that anybody who's actually coming into you for an interview is a good skill fit and a good culture fit. And I'll tell you, for a lot of these small businesses, that is a godsend, because they have been either paying tens of thousands of dollars to a recruiter to try and do this, or they're trying to sort through the hundreds of candidates that are coming through on Indeed.com, and to know these are values aligned, mission driven employees who want to bring value to my company, whether it's a machine shop or a construction company or a technology business. We're all over the map, but really there's a lot of opportunities and we're growing all the time. But anyway, that's how we work with people. Those are the type of industries we have. And it's just been a really awesome adventure.
So I, in my other life, early in my career, I was a recruiter.
Yeah.
That's what I did. I focused though on just financial and accounting candidates, looking for those types of candidates for companies with job openings. So I was doing that kind of legwork, but we didn't have all of the technology. It's, back in the prehistoric days, and but it was an interesting job. But so now your company is kind of is filling in those areas and helping those companies. And that is a massive undertaking, having done it myself.
Yeah.
The initial screening of looking at those resumes, making a match, doing kind of a pre-screen interview to get them to the next level. That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
Do you have a big staff?
We do. We have a decent team. Well, we have a great team. It's not a huge team, given that my last company, I had hundreds of employees. I now have tens of employees, but they're all awesome. But no, because we are a job board, we can do it at scale. And so we have, call it 10 to 20,000 job seekers a week that are coming to the site looking for freedom. And so we have this kind of scale that would be hard to do if you're just a recruitment shop. And look, there's some great recruiters out there. But when I was a CEO of this previous company, I used recruiters, and I was never thrilled with the outcome of that process. And I'll tell you why. And again, if you're a recruiter, I'm sure you were an amazing recruiter, but there were some recruiters out there that are kind of charlatans in this industry, because they have this perverse incentive that they get a percentage of the first year income for the person they're bringing to the job, right? Whether that's 15% or 20%, or I've heard it as high as 40% of the first year salary of the person coming to the job. And so they're trying to sell a business the highest priced person possible, because then they get the biggest commission check, right? That's just, it's how incentives work. It's not that they're bad people. It's just how the world works. And so what RedBalloon's done is said, okay, I kind of took a step back. If I was a CEO, how would I want someone to work for me in this space? I always love it if I know what the activity is. So if I have a sales rep and I know they're doing the work, they're working really hard, even if they're not on quota, I know that they are doing the sales activity that's going to lead to success. Okay, that's good. So I want to know what the activity is. And I don't want a weird perverse incentive in place between the recruiter and the business. And so what we do is we go through this entire process. We do hundreds of interviews a month for our businesses. And we only charge $3,500 as a flat fee for an under $100,000 position, and $4,500 for an over $100,000 position. And the reason we do a flat fee, and then we also give a weekly report to every business we're working for, saying how many people we've talked to, why we disqualified them. If anyone gives us market feedback, like, I would be interested in this job, except, we'll pass that market feedback onto the business. So they're not flying blind. They know people are not taking it because of salary or moving bonuses or remote option or whatever it is. So we do this whole process, and then the business is going into it knowing I have a fixed amount of money that I'm going to spend. I'm going to get multiple candidates that are a good fit for my culture and for my skills. And I'm going to get this market feedback on why or why not I'm filling that position. And I talked to a small radio station in Texas, and he's like, this is an answer to prayer that someone's going to come along and make sure that I'm not going to get a lawsuit, and I'm going to get a great talent for my business. So that's been really fun to do. And then obviously lots and lots of businesses are just posting jobs and getting great candidates through the platform. So we're kind of a hybrid job board, trying to help people in any way we can, because a lot of small businesses, I mean, that small businesses, we're the lifeblood of this country, and we need this economy to go, and we need this economy to succeed. And if we can be a blessing to small businesses all across this country, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, amen to that. So that's wonderful for those small business owners, that the flat fee, because it makes it affordable for them to get that kind of help. Because, when I talk to small business owners, they are the chief cook and bottle washer
Big time.
many times. And then to also try and do that initial screening it's a lot. So a $3,500 or a $4,500 flat fee, that's worth it.
Yeah.
It's certainly worth its weight in gold to hire a quality person who can bring value to the company. So that what a fantastic service. Are you able to pull polling or data from your employers, your small business owners who are posting jobs, on sort of what their future look at hiring is and things like that?
That's a great question. And in fact, I'm excited because this is kind of a teaser. Public Square and Red Balloon are doing a joint Freedom Economy Index that will be released next month. In fact, our first one, where we're polling now tens of thousands of these businesses in this freedom economy on how they're thinking about hiring, how they're thinking about the economy and what the economy is doing to them. And so I don't have the results of that, but I can tell you anecdotally, because I literally talk to at least a dozen small businesses all across this country every single week. And what I'm hearing consistently is our business is doing great, but we're nervous about the economy. The Biden economics is bad for our business, and therefore we're being careful on hiring. We're being careful on expansion because we're nervous about where the economy is going. Are we going into a recession? Are we not going into a recession? Are we going into a deflationary period? Right. So these businesses, it's more of a perception than a reality right now, where they're talking about like, look, I'm booked for the next 4 months, but I'm worried about where things are going right now. And this is from HVAC companies to, I just talked to an electronic board manufacturer in Houston, and he's like, I have so much work to do. It's the busiest I've ever been, but I'm nervous about the economy. And so it is interesting because I do think the mainstream media can have an impact on people's perception of where the economy is going. And sometimes it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I do think the policies coming out of the White House are detrimental to small businesses. I know as a small business owner, as someone in the trenches with y'all, they're terrible policies. But people who work hard, people who are willing to do what they say, when they say they're going to do it, for the price they say, I still think there's opportunities for those people. And a lot of the conservative small businesses in America are still thriving, even though they're nervous about what's going on in the economy. So anyway, that's what anecdotally I'm hearing, but we're going to come out with a survey soon that I think will be really interesting to see what people are thinking at scale.
Well, I would love to see the data and have you come back and talk about it. It actually support what you've talked about anecdotally supports we do a national small business poll every month. Scott Rasmussen and John McLaughlin do the poll together for us. And exactly what you described is exactly what is happening with our small business owners. They feel good about themselves. They feel good about their business. But when they look at the overall economy, they're nervous. And about 60% show that they're putting like a pause on hiring and increasing wages. They're not letting people go. They don't want to do that. They've been through a lot with the whole labor shortage. So they're doing a bit of hoarding on the labor. And of course, you know as well as I do, that's the last thing small business owners want to ever do is lay off their employees. They'll do everything else before they lay off their employees and try to keep them because, it's like their family of employees. And you've got 10 employees, you know them all, you know their spouses, you know their kids, you know what they're doing on the weekends with Little League and everything like that. So those are tough decisions, but exactly what you described is exactly what our poll is showing for sure. It's more the future. It's more being nervous about the policies coming out of the administration and the future look with the cost of energy. And even though we've seen the moderation in inflation, There's the compounding effect that things are just up in price as much as, 15, 20%.
That's right.
And that's not changing anytime soon for people. So if you were advising the Biden administration right now, as a small business owner, what advice would you give them to actually get this economy moving again? Not just the words that they talk about to try and make everybody think the economy is doing well.
Yeah, well, I'd say that we need to remember there's the two most expensive parts of any economy are energy and labor, right? Energy and labor. If you look at the expenses of any major business, labor, the payroll, and energy are the most expensive for the entire economy. And right now, the policies are making it hard to find labor. If you looked at the last job report, the only sector that was growing significantly in new jobs created was the government sector. So that means in an economy where we're struggling to find employees for these small businesses, the government is hoarding their own talent with our money, which should be very discouraging. That in 1 month, they added 60,000 jobs to the government sector. That should be overwhelming, discouraging. So I would tell them to stop doing that. And the second thing is energy independence, right? Anytime that we are dependent upon Russia or the Middle East for energy, puts America in a very tenuous position and is absolutely going to increase the cost of energy, because if we can get it here, if we can unleash American innovation on getting energy out of the ground, whether it's oil or coal or whatever it is, energy and labor are the two biggest things. So stop paying people to not work. A lot of the unemployment system is broken. Stop hiring so many employees in the public sector with our tax dollars, and unleash the American energy sector. Honestly, you do those three things, and America's economy is good in a surprisingly small amount of time. I think we would unleash small businesses. I've actually been encouraged on one side for small businesses. A lot of the big tech that overhired during COVID released a lot of their talent, right? And so I've heard from a lot of small businesses, they're like, I now have access to someone I can afford because the big, Seattle and Bay Area tech companies aren't paying their $1 million salaries anymore. And so I can, but small businesses are still competing with government for those employees. So stop hiring so much, stop paying people to stop working, and unleash an American energy. And man, I think this economy would be humming in a hot minute.
Absolutely. And you touched on something with the energy. It really started on day one because of the Biden administration, with the attack on our domestic energy, with that cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline. And then every step forward after that has just been a complete attack. And we've taken our energy independence just a few short years ago, where we were actually a net exporter to other countries, to having to go to countries that don't like us and beg them for more oil. I mean, what a turn of events.
Terrible idea.
Just crazy. And gas is still over $3 a gallon in many places. I'm sure it's more in places like California. But that is significant in spite of the inflation moderating, but it does. You're so right. It drill, baby, drill, right? I mean,
Drill,
it's
baby,
just
drill, 100%.
If they can't understand, and I'm an all of the above girl, like all of it. We need, let's use gas, let's use EVs, let's use it all. Yep. and see what the market wants and what people can afford. That would be wonderful, not these mandates. And we actually asked our small business owners, do you think that the government should mandate the EVs, or should we let the market decide it? And overwhelmingly, no surprise to you, I'm sure, small business owners want the market to decide because it's expensive. You can't pick winners and losers, right?
No, absolutely. Anytime the government is messing with the free market and not allowing it to be, well, shockingly, the free market doesn't work if it's not free. Then the free market, you're going to have this crony capitalism. And I'm probably an anomaly because I have a F-250 diesel truck for plowing my driveway, and I drive a Tesla on a daily basis. I'm not necessarily trying to save the environment. It's just so darn fast and so much fun to drive. So I've got both ends of the spectrum there. But I think let the market decide. Let people make good decisions for themselves. And it's interesting because, some of the customers for RedBalloon.work, Strive Financial, which is Vivek Ramaswamy's company. We're doing a lot of the hiring for them, but we're also doing a lot of the hiring for Children's Health Defense, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s company. And I think what's interesting and kind of the common factor between both of those is they want people to be free. They want people to make good decisions about their own lives. Because, if you read Hayek or Friedman or any of the great economists, the free market economists, like, let the market decide. And if you let the market decide, better decisions are going to be made than bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., who have a person whispering in their ear trying to get them to support one group or the other. But let the market do its thing, cut the size of government. And I would love to see the American spirit unleashed, because there's so much potential. And so I'm still an optimist about this country, even with the crazy things happening in D.C. today.
Well, you're a small business owner and an entrepreneur, and I find that they are all optimists overall. They have to be, because they try and they fail, and they try and they fail, and they learn and they fail, and they learn and they fail. So
that's right.
It's built inside you. So, well, thank you so much for joining us, Andrew. Thank you for taking the time. I love learning about Red Balloon and your life in general, and how you got there, how you got to where you are today. If you want to come back and talk about the polling that you're doing, I'd love to talk about that again.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for joining Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. And please subscribe to the show at SalemPodcastNetwork.com or anywhere you get your podcasts from. Thanks.